Thanks for joining us at English Podcast, where learning English feels simple and enjoyable.
We share stories, real conversations, and tips to help you grow day by day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep creating for you. Have you ever been on a train journey where you felt a connection with someone without even speaking a word? It's a strange but fascinating experience, isn't it? Today's story explores this silent communication, those unspoken conversations that happen between strangers.
Yes, I think we've all had moments like that. It's almost like a secret language, a shared understanding that doesn't need words. Our story is called The Silent Train Ride, and it's set on a commuter train during the evening rush hour.
Imagine a train carriage packed with tired commuters heading home after a long day at work. The air is thick with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation for the evening ahead.
The carriage is a mix of personalities and emotions. Some people are lost in their books, trying to escape the crowded reality around them. Others stare out the window, watching the city lights blur past. To blur means to become unclear or indistinct.
And then there are those who simply sit, eyes closed, perhaps catching a few precious moments of rest before they face the next part of their day. The atmosphere is a blend of quiet murmurs and the rhythmic rumble of the train on the tracks.
Amongst this crowd, two strangers sit opposite each other. They haven't spoken a word, but their eyes meet briefly, a fleeting connection in the crowded space. One is a young woman, Sarah, clutching a worn leather-bound book. The other, a man named Michael, with tired eyes and a slightly crumpled suit.
So, the train jerked forward, and we started our journey. I looked around. A young woman sat across from me, sketching in a small notebook. An older gentleman beside her was engrossed in a newspaper, the pages rustling softly. The carriage was mostly quiet, only interrupted by the rhythmic clatter of the train on the tracks. Engrossed, by the way, means completely absorbed in something.
And you, what were you doing? Were you engrossed in a book, perhaps? Or maybe listening to music?
Neither. I was just observing, taking it all in. People watching. It's fascinating how much you can learn about someone just by observing them. I noticed the young woman's pencil moved with such precision, creating delicate lines. The older gentleman occasionally chuckled softly at something he read, his shoulders shaking gently.
It sounds peaceful. A quiet train ride can be a great opportunity for that kind of quiet observation. So, what happened next? Did anyone break the silence?
Well, not with words, at least. The young woman, after finishing a sketch, glanced up and caught my eye. She offered a small, hesitant smile. I returned the smile, a silent acknowledgement of shared space in this traveling metal box.
A silent acknowledgement, I like that. It's like a little unspoken connection. We often communicate so much without even realizing it, don't we? These small, nonverbal cues can sometimes be more powerful than words.
Exactly. Then something happened. The train suddenly lurched violently, throwing everyone forward. The older gentleman's newspaper flew up in the air, landing scattered across the aisle. Several people gasped. The quiet carriage was momentarily filled with startled murmurs.
Oh dear, that sounds unsettling. Lurch means to suddenly move forward or sideways in an uncontrolled way. So, what did everyone do after this sudden jolt?
Instinctively, I reached down and gathered some of the scattered newspaper pages. The young woman did the same. We both handed them back to the gentleman, who looked a bit shaken but managed a grateful nod. We exchanged glances again, this time a shared understanding of the unexpected interruption and the small act of helping.
It's amazing how quickly people can come together in moments like that, even without saying a word. A shared experience, a little bit of shared kindness. It creates a connection, however fleeting. Fleeting means lasting for a very short time.
So, to quickly recap what's happened so far in our story, the silent train ride, a young man, Alex, is on a long train journey. He's quite shy, a bit of an introvert, someone who prefers their own company. He's observing his fellow passengers, and he's particularly intrigued by an older woman sitting across from him. She seems lost in thought, gazing out the window.
Exactly. And we've established that even though they haven't spoken a single word, there's this kind of unspoken connection, a shared experience of the journey unfolding. Remember, the title is Conversations That Happen Without Words, so we're focusing on how people communicate through body language, expressions, and just by being present in the same space.
Right. He notices the little things she does, the way she adjusts her shawl, the gentle smile that plays on her lips when she sees children playing outside. These small actions tell a story, even without words. He starts to imagine her life, her past, her joys and sorrows. It's like he's building a whole narrative in his head.
And that's what's so fascinating. He's creating this whole story about a complete stranger based on just observation. We all do this sometimes, don't we? We people watch and make assumptions. It's human nature. And the train journey, with its enforced proximity to others, kind of amplifies this tendency. To amplify something means to make it bigger or stronger.
Absolutely. And remember the detail about the book she's reading? It's a well-worn copy of classic poetry. This detail adds another layer to Alex's imagined narrative. He starts picturing her as a romantic, a lover of art and beauty. This small detail, the book, speaks volumes. Speaks volumes is an idiom, by the way, meaning that something reveals a lot of information, even without words.
Yes, and as the journey continues, the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the carriage. The changing light affects the mood. Everything feels more introspective, more thoughtful. It's as though the fading light encourages Alex to delve deeper into his observations, his silent conversation with the woman across from him. To delve deeper means to explore something more thoroughly.
As the train chugged along, the woman glanced at the book the man was reading. It was a well-worn copy of 100 Years of Solitude, a classic. She'd read it years ago and remembered being utterly captivated, completely absorbed by the magical realism. Seeing it again brought back a wave of nostalgia.
He noticed her looking and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, acknowledging her glance. This, imperceptible, means barely noticeable. It's a great word to use when something is very subtle or slight. He seemed to understand that shared connection book lovers have, that silent recognition of a treasured story.
Yes, exactly, a shared appreciation. He then marked his page with a thin, leather bookmark, the kind that ages beautifully with use. Well worn is another good one, describing something that's been used a lot, showing signs of wear but also a sense of history and love.
He closed the book, holding it gently in his lap. He seemed to be deep in thought. Lost in thought is a good idiom for that state of mind, fully absorbed in your own thoughts. He looked out at the passing landscape, a mixture of rolling hills and dense woodland.
The woman returned to gazing out of the window too, appreciating the picturesque scenery. Picturesque means visually attractive, especially in a quaint or charming way, like something you'd see on a postcard. The sunlight streamed through the train window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air.
She thought about how much can be said without a single word being spoken. This silent exchange, this unspoken understanding, felt surprisingly meaningful. Unspoken understanding is a beautiful phrase, isn't it? It captures that connection you can have with someone without verbal communication.
It does. This silent communication is central to our story. The idea that sometimes silence can be more eloquent, more expressive than words. Eloquent means fluent or persuasive in speaking or writing, but it can also refer to a powerful, meaningful silence. There's a certain eloquence in their shared contemplation of the journey, the book, and the world outside.
And then, something shifted. The man reached into his bag and pulled out a small tin of brightly colored sweets. He opened it and offered it to her, a wordless invitation to share.
Okay, so, to recap, a young woman, Maya, boarded a train. She seemed a bit lost in her thoughts, maybe a little sad. And across from her sat an older gentleman, reading a newspaper. The train was quite empty.
Right. And remember that important detail: the train was unusually silent. No usual hustle and bustle. Even the rhythmic chug of the wheels seemed muted, almost as if holding its breath.
Exactly. And then, the gentleman's newspaper slipped. It fell at Maya's feet. She picked it up and returned it to him.
A small gesture, but it was the beginning of their silent conversation. He smiled in thanks, a kind, gentle smile. She returned a small, hesitant smile. And that was it. No words spoken.
Throughout the journey, they continued to communicate without speaking. He offered her part of his sandwich, which she politely declined. She pointed out a beautiful sunset through the window. He nodded in agreement. Small actions, big meaning.
They shared this quiet connection. Remember how we talked about nonverbal communication? This story is a perfect example. They understood each other without the need for words. Their shared silence wasn't awkward, it was comfortable, even peaceful.
It's interesting how sometimes silence can speak volumes, right? It can be more powerful than words.
As the train reached her station, Maya stood to leave. She looked at the old man, a silent "thank you" in her eyes. He simply nodded again, his eyes twinkling with understanding.
She got off the train, feeling strangely lighter, less burdened by whatever sadness she had carried onto the train. The silent interaction had somehow lifted her spirits. This often happens when we connect with others, even strangers, in a meaningful way.
And remember the last detail: the old man went back to his newspaper, but with a faint smile still playing on his lips. He, too, seemed touched by this brief, wordless encounter.
The story beautifully illustrates how even the shortest encounters can have a profound impact. It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful conversations are the ones we have without saying a word. Remember the key vocabulary here: nonverbal communication, profound impact, and wordless encounter.
Absolutely. It also teaches us to be open to these small moments of connection. You never know when a silent train ride can turn into a heartwarming story. And it shows us that kindness can be expressed in so many ways, not just through words.
Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.